By the way, my name is Walt Merrill, and I am the District Attorney for the 22nd Judicial Circuit, which is Covington County. I have a prepared statement that I'm not going to read, but I will generally resuscitate what is on it, and I also will provide copies of it to any members of the media that would so like. I also have copies of some court documents that are now public, and any member of the media that would like copies of those documents, if you'll see me afterwards, I'll be glad to provide those to you. On May 2nd, 1994, James Nibby Barton was found dead behind the counter of his Heath, Alabama convenience store. He was found by his now deceased wife, Ruth, and he was the victim of an apparent robbery. The fatal wound was a gunshot to the chest. Nibby was well known as a hard-working and shrewd businessman. He was a loving father, a devoted husband, and has been commonly described to me as the kind of man that would give you the shirt off his back. I never had the pleasure of knowing Nibby Barton, but I have had the pleasure of listening to countless stories about the kind of man he was, and he certainly sounds like the kind of an individual that I would have benefited from knowing. Despite a tremendous effort by law enforcement at the time, which includes then Sheriff Wilbur Mitchell, who is here to my left, and of course a combined effort between the Sheriff's Department at the time and the Andalusia Police Department, the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences, and the Alabama Bureau of Investigations and other law enforcement agencies, the crime went unsolved for nearly 20 years. This past February, myself, along with Sheriff Meeks, now retired Andalusia Police Chief Wilbur Williams, Op Police Chief Mike McDonald, who was unable to be with us today, Florella Chief Sonny Bedsole, Lieutenant Tommy Merritt of the ABI, Lieutenant Tracy Von Holland of the ABC Board, Enterprise Police Chief T.D. Jones, Houston County Sheriff Andy Hughes, and the Covington County Emergency Management Agency all agreed to combine our forces for the common good of a cold case task force. Each agency assigned manpower to that task force, and each man that was assigned to the task force brought a specialized skill set. Some are seasoned investigators, others are street-savvy patrol officers. We have forensic scientists on the task force. We have computer experts on the task force. We have firearms experts on the task force. All in all, they are, in my humble opinion, the finest caliber and quality of investigators assembled for a common good in the Wiregrass area. One of the investigations that the task force reopened was the investigation into the murder of James Nibby Barton. The task force wanted to view this and other cold cases with a clean slate. We started with no suspects. We started with no preconceived notions. Each task force member, who, by the way, by agreement, will all remain anonymous, each task force member agent was given a complete copy of the Nibby Barton case file. Their first homework assignment was to review that case file and present to us a theory as to who might have committed the crime and why. We came back together for a meeting and review, and we collectively, between the 16 members at the time, had 5 different theories. We then began the process not of proving any one particular theory, but disproving the theories as we could. 4 of those theories were disproven. That left us but with 1. As we worked to disprove that theory, what we found happened was we collected more and more evidence to support the theory. That evidence included eyewitnesses. Ultimately, after 70 some odd interviews, it included partial confessions, tens of dozens of leads, and reams of evidence. And as a result of that theory, and as a result of the undeniable diligence of this cold case task force, we have now indicted the murderers of James Nibby Barton. I say indicted because although we could have presented this case to a magistrate and obtained warrants based on the evidence we had, we wanted to test the evidence. We wanted 18 citizens from Covington County to review the evidence, look at it through the lens of a private citizen, and determine whether or not, in their opinion, it would withstand muster. At its conclusion, that grand jury found that probable cause did exist to issue indictments for 4 individuals for the murder and robbery of Nibby Barton. Sheriff Meeks will come up in just a moment and identify those individuals that have been arrested that are currently in custody. I will tell you that at present 1 individual remains at large, and because of the grand jury secrecy laws of the state of Alabama, no one that stands before you today is at liberty to identify who that suspect is. Before I turn the podium over to Sheriff Meeks, I want to acknowledge that here with us today are 2 of Nibby Barton's family members. His son Jimmy and Jimmy's wife Becky are with us today. In a few minutes, the sheriff is going to introduce them, and they will be granted the podium to say a few words. I do want to tell you all that the Barton family has been apprised of every aspect of this investigation, and they have been kept in the loop and involved from day one. In fact, before we took any official action as a cold case task force, we met with them and more or less asked their permission to reinvestigate the crime. Of course, since that time, we had an investigation to run, and we wanted to absolutely preserve the integrity of that investigation. And so we asked the Barton family to deny any knowledge of what was going on. I know that church members, friends, neighbors, co-workers, and the like have all approached the Barton family and asked, well, do you know what's going on? Do you know what they're up to? Do you know if they've got any leads? Do you know if they've made any progress? And I know that at our request, the Barton family has at each and every turn denied any knowledge. So let me say to those friends and co-workers that I apologize to you for being deceived in that manner. However, I trust that you understand the importance of the secrecy that we operated under. I assure you the Bartons meant no harm, and they only sought to preserve the integrity of the investigation. Finally, this marks the first step in bringing closure to the Barton family. Of course, all criminal defendants are presumed innocent until they are proven guilty in a court of law. But we are confident that the overwhelming evidence that we have amassed during this almost year-long investigation by a group of some of the finest law enforcement officers around will result in these 4 defendants finding justice. We are confident that we will be able to bring some element of closure to the Barton family. And we are confident that when it's all said and done, that Nibby Barton's death will not be in vain. I can tell you, Jimmy and Becky, that the cold case task force is humbled for you to allow us to be a part of this. And I am humbled as the district attorney to be a part of such a fine group of law enforcement, to be a part of such a fine group of leadership. And as a citizen of Covington County, I can tell you it is my personal opinion that we are absolutely blessed to have these men so dedicated to the cause. So with that, I will introduce Sheriff Meeks, and then he will introduce the Barton family. Sheriff?
Good afternoon. Yesterday, after indictments was handed down by the grand jury, we went out about mid-afternoon, and 3 people were arrested for the murder of Nibby Barton. The first defendant is Eugene Wallace Black, 55 years old, of Andalusia. His charges are murder, robbery first degree, burglary third degree, domestic violence, harassment, and violation of probation. His total bond is $2,550,000. The second defendant is Sheila Walker Williams, 52 years old, of Andalusia. Her charges are murder, robbery first degree. Total bond, $1 million. Third defendant, Sheila Ellison Brooks, 57 years old, of Andalusia. Her charges are murder, robbery first degree, and she also has a $1 million bond. As District Attorney Merrill said a while ago, we do have a 4th defendant, and they will be in custody soon. I'd like to thank the members and member agencies of the Cold Case Task Force and the personnel and the chiefs that have allowed your personnel to be a part of this task force. Also, I'd like to thank Norman Hobson from the Covington County Sheriff's Office, also the Fingerprint Division, Alabama Bureau of Investigation, Auburn and Montgomery Labs, Forensic Science, the U.S. Marshals, Gulf Coast Fugitive Task Force, 22nd Judicial Circuit Drug Task Force, and Houston County Sheriff Andy Hughes for their work and efforts in bringing justice to this case. May 2nd of 14 will be the 20th anniversary of the death of Mr. Barton, and I'm glad that we could help bring closure to the Barton family in this case. Also, I would like to thank them and appreciate the patience that they've had over the last 19 and a half years. To the victim of any case, let this be an example not to give up on law enforcement. Sometimes it just takes the right piece of evidence or a good lead to head a case in the right direction. I know this case has weighed on Sheriff Wilbur Mitchell's mind for several years also, so I'm glad that you're able to see this come to a closure as well. Again, I'm grateful for all the hard work that's been done in this case and look forward to closing other cold cases in the future. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jimmy Barton to come up and say a few words.
I'm Jimmy Barton, and my dad was James Nibby Barton. Our family has waited 19 and a half years for this day, and it come to a point that we thought we would never see this day. But on behalf of my family, we would like to thank the members of the task force for everything that they have done. This task force, you would not believe, and I've met each and every individual in the task force and talked with them. They are God-fearing men. They search each and every lead and it didn't matter how big or how small the lead was. They did not turn anything down without looking at it twice, maybe 3 times. Christmas is a time for Thanksgiving, for thinking about Jesus Christ and what he means to us. And we will give thanks this Christmas. It will be a good Christmas for us. On the other hand, I have to look at it. I know there's families on both sides, and although our family will be joyful this Christmas, I think about the other side of the room. And I know that some of them are heartbroken, and I just want you to know that our family feels for you also. So we'll close with that, and we thank each and every one. Also, while I'm here, Walt Merrill, I know I've expressed my sincere appreciation for the things he's done, but he has really stepped up. He has a great team working with him, and I'm sure they'll do a great deal more here in the county. Also, Sheriff Dennis Meeks, for him allowing his personnel to have the time to work on this. I certainly appreciate it. So thank you once again.
At this time, I will invite any of our chiefs or administrators who are participants in the task force, if they would like, or you, Sheriff Mitchell, if you would like to come forward and make any remarks you might want to. And I should mention, by the way, you notice I said now retired Chief Wilbur Williams. I do want to point out that newly appointed Chief or Interim Chief Paul Dean of the Andalusia Police, Paul Hudson, too many Pauls, of the Andalusia Police Department, has also been fully supportive of the Cold Case Task Force, and we appreciate his efforts as well. So, gentlemen, if any of you have a remark you'd like to make, please feel free to come forward.
I'd just like to thank everybody who has did any part of the work on this case from the start to the finish, and thank the Barton family. They never put pressure on us. They let us work it. We worked as hard as we could, but my department, we were unable to finish the job, and I'm thankful that we have a district attorney and a sheriff who finished the job. Thank you.